computer, I guess. All right, here we go. Welcome back to week 3 of Sevens, an introduction to the game. We've had a great couple of weeks, and this week we're heading into the physical demands of the game imposed from Sevens, from both the perspective of top-level strength and conditioning coach and a top-level Sevens player, and Jared Collinson and Kristi Kirshe. So thank you both for being on. Jared, we haven't had you on the show yet, so maybe if you want to introduce yourself, mate, that would be phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely. Jared Collinson, strength conditioning coach for the New England Free Jacks, quite obviously. I also own Flight Performance and Fitness in Newton, Mass, where we train all sorts of athletes from different levels, from youth, high school, collegiate to professional. That's actually where I met Kirshe about 2 years ago, probably right around the same time that I started working for the Free Jacks. So our gym, like I said, works with all these different athletes of different ages and whatnot, different sports. But naturally, having a large rugby background, we kind of gravitated towards a lot of rugby players in the Boston area, and that's been helpful for us, and it's been helpful in my development as just trying to become the best strength conditioning coach I can be.
Brilliant. I refer to it, Jared, as the Boston hub of rugby, Flight Performance and Fitness, because that's essentially what it is, and it is a really great training facility, and it's also a place where like-minded people can work on their skills and so on and so forth at the same time. Kristi, and you can probably testify to that a little bit too.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think the coolest thing about Flight is the culture, I think, of Flight, and I think that's a really special part of getting to work out there. I think the programming is amazing, and also you get to kind of hang out with people that you really enjoy being around, and that just motivates everyone to do even better in the gym. So
absolutely awesome. It's great for us to have the Free Jacks there. We've got Women's Eagles training out of there. We've got a Beantown train out of there in the WPL. Mystic guys, players from all sorts of clubs, Wolfhounds and otherwise. So it's a great facility for us. And Jared, thanks to you for making it all happen, mate. So we'll head into this here. And Jared, this slide is sort of your bread and butter, and what you're looking for from a physical capacity out of your Sevens players. And maybe you can just sort of run us through what this slide is kind of talking about.
Yeah, so hopefully what I can kind of get through today is, general looks and needs for rugby players and what their programming should look like. And obviously with Kristi here, I'll kind of talk about how I would go about differentiating this a little bit more from a 15s program, and even how I give a little bit more of a personal touch based on, the specific athlete that I'm looking for. So kind of the main things that you're looking for from a Sevens player, going to be a large focus on high-speed running, high-speed meters. We're always looking for that, and that's kind of how we quantify things on the 15s pitch as well. But if you watch a Sevens player, they're an absolute greyhound out there. They just move around and move around and move around, and they get really comfortable in pretty dark places. So naturally, that kind of leads me to the next point, where we're going to be looking to build kind of the aerobic and the alactic and lactic anaerobic systems. So if we're getting into physiological perspective there, those are really going to be what we're looking for. More of the anaerobic stuff that you see in like a American football player or any sort of power sport. You're not going to get as much of that in the rugby sevens, even as much as you would in the rugby 15s. So we're going to kind of tailor our training and tailor the stimulus of our sessions around that. Repeated sprintability goes into the high speed running. These athletes they're gonna have to sprint for anywhere of 40 to 120 meters, and then have to be able to quickly turn around and recover. Usually in active recovery, it's never really a walk or anything like that. It's a retreat, a back pedal, side shuffle, side movement before that next thing is going to happen, right? So that's kind of going into that lactic anaerobic system that I'll kind of get into a little bit later. And then when it comes to the weight room stuff, I spent a lot more time with my Sevens players on more movement variability and full range of motion stuff. Strength and power is obviously very important in rugby, but more so in a Sevens player, I'm looking for them to be able to move really well, be able to rotate, be able to go through full ranges of motion, because that's what's going to keep them healthier. And I think there's less of a desire to have these athletes moving tons of weight on the bar, because again, moving tons of weight on the bar, short bursts of energy, 3, 4, 5 seconds on a heavy squat or something like that, where these athletes are going to need to endure, large amounts of work when they get out on the sevens pitch. Just to kind of go over a couple of the terms that I just went over. So aerobic, I look at that as being the overall work capacity. Long durations of steady state work are going to be things that we're going to do to kind of build those capabilities. So when I think of aerobic work, I think of the foundation of a house. How thick the foundation is going to be. You can't really build a house on a crappy foundation; it's going to fall apart. So what I think about, and you can kind of take the analogy here. When you think of like those big skyscrapers, you see how far they dig down into the ground to build those foundations for those skyscrapers to go as high as they are. And so I think of that skyscraper as the fitness that an athlete needs during these sports that they're playing. So a rugby sevens player, their fitness, they're going to have to be a pretty tall building, right? They're going to need to be able to run for 7 to 14 minutes, all out, and you're going to be exposed if you're not fit and you're not in the right position. So fitness is pretty much a non-negotiable in the sport.
Mm-hmm.
So like I said, long durations of steady state work, early on, and Kirshe can attest to it. The first 2 to 3 months of her training phase as I got her and she was back here, I was really just trying to build work capacity, and I was trying to build total meterage and total volume. We didn't really work too high in intensity. I maybe had one day that was higher in intensity. It was more about just building volume and getting the body used to a lot of stress. And I didn't really quite get into as much of the nuts and bolts and break down the sessions as much as we're kind of diving into now, which is the more of the fun stuff. But yeah, she laughs. The anaerobic lactic stuff. So this is going to be more of working for 30 to 45 seconds, aka those 200s, Kirshe, and then getting short bursts of recovery there. And what that does is it helps increase oxidative capabilities in the muscle fibers. It helps build stroke volume in the heart, builds the heart to be a lot stronger. So if you're thinking about physiological adaptations, that's what we're getting out of that. And I mean, if you think about what's going on in a sevens pitch, it's going to be a hard burst for 30, 40 seconds, followed by a little bit of, active recovery as she's jogging back to place or sliding over, sliding out, pushing out from the breakdown, that sort of stuff. Another thing that this is great for is helping facilitate creatine phosphate and adenosine triphosphate replenishment in the muscles. So the more that we can get an athlete fit and the more time we can spend in this area, the more we're going to allow them to recover quicker when it comes to getting out on the pitch and, going through a hard session or going through a hard play and being able to bounce back and make the next play and not fall off.
And I've got to ask, Jared, you might be able to touch on the scientific side, and Kristi, you might be able to touch on the real life side of it. But you often see athletes, and I see there the repeat sprint ability after a big sprint effort, either the hands on the head or the hands on the knees. And Ben Pickleman's a big proponent of hands on knees. What's your go-to after a big 80-meter sprint to get your breath back?
It's funny. This was like a hot topic in the strength conditioning world. I don't know, maybe about a month ago. I felt like in one day, 4 people posted the same thing, and I was like, "Are you guys all reading each other's stuff?" But yeah, the biggest misconception in the recovery world is that hands on the head, breathe here, and that's how you're going to recover. Don't put your hands on your knees; it's a sign of weakness. But actually, there's a reason why people resort to doing that, and it's just diaphragmatic pressure of being able to get oxygen into the body. So, going hands on the knees, getting over into that more horizontal position is going to be easier way for you to recover, and it's going to require less work. And obviously, if you think about it from a mechanical perspective, it's going to require more muscular energy to hold yourself upright than it is to rest your hands on your knees and allow your body to recover, allow your diaphragm to recover, which is where you're going to be getting a lot of that oxygen in. So no doubt about it, hands on the knees. That's why you'll see people drop to their hands and knees on the ground if they're really dying. Obviously, these are not things that we're looking for during a game. But, I mean, if we can flirt with that a little bit in training and kind of get them used to being there, it's going to make the game a little bit more enjoyable or a little less daunting.
Yeah. I'm definitely a hands on the knees kind of person. I've definitely gotten yelled at it before, but like you said, it's kind of your natural instinct. Like when you're in that, like, I can't catch my breath, you just like kind of naturally fall down to hands on knees.
Yeah. And it's actually comfortable there to recover. Obviously, like if you're on the field, you got to keep moving around. It sucks. But if you're doing a fitness session, or something like that, it's definitely going to be the most effective way for you to recover. And I mean, naturally, our bodies do a lot of things for us, and that's one of those things that I think some high school football coach out there one day said, "You look weak if your hands are on your knees, so put your hands up on your head and stand up and walk it out." But more so than ever, he was very wrong with that.
Nice. Well, folks, there you have it. And Jared, I was just thinking it's quite a cool challenge from a strength and conditioning perspective, in that you've got 7s athletes and 15s and different positions within 15s. So you've got so many different challenges and different stimuluses that you need to be able to cater for. And I guess that's probably, partly why you love your job so much within the rugby landscape.
Yeah, going further outside of that with flight and whatnot, it was phenomenal for me to have flight and work with different athletes playing different sports, different ages and stuff like that, because it just changes things up. You're not working with the same thing over and over again. And now that I've gotten further into this rugby realm, it's been really good. And having Kirshe get to the level where she's at has been, a challenge for me to make sure that I know what she needs to be doing to, stay at her best, and make sure that I can continue to give her the right tools to succeed at what she's doing. I've spent a lot of time over the last 2 years, bettering myself in the rugby strength conditioning realm, just from a couple different mentors and mentees. And when Kirshe, every time Kirshe would go out to camp and stuff, I'd always be emailing her like, "Hey, send me your GPS reports. Let me know what you're doing so I can just read this stuff, look at it, compare it to what we're doing on the 15s pitch. What does it look like? How is it differing? And obviously from being able to having played 7s and 15s, I've felt what it's like on the body. And like that's kind of been, a good way for me to kind of separate those different avenues and see where, there's different adaptations for the different sports. And so someone like Kirshe, it's been a pleasure to be able to work with her, because, when you talk about having an athlete make you look good, if I get any sort of praise for what Kirshe has done, I've done nothing besides kind of lead her maybe in the right direction, let a horse to water. Because she's definitely very much like a horse when she gets going on the field. But kind of getting into the specificity stuff with her. Some of the things that Kirshe does really well is she's extremely fast and she's extremely strong. So when I thought about what she needs to work on, things that she needs to work on, it's not necessarily going to be the speed and the strength. Obviously, I can help her with those things and get her a little bit better, a little bit faster. We can work on some mechanics. We can work on some top end speed. We can work on some acceleration work. The first day she was in my gym, I think she was like hang cleaning 155 pounds, which is pretty unheard of. I think she was all the way up to 185 by the time she went out to USA camp, but pretty unheard of in the women's lifting realm. And I had my Olympic lifters in there, like, who the fuck is this girl? Oops, excuse my language. Who is this girl that's outlifting all the girls that do Olympic weightlifting? Why is she throwing around so much weight and makes it look so easy? And so when you get someone that's gifted like that, I was challenged to kind of say, all right, well, I can kind of help her out in, making sure that she's super fit, making sure that she has repeated sprint ability so that she can use that speed, she can use that power over and over in a game. And that's what's going to kind of make the difference for her. Is not necessarily, bringing her from, I think her fastest GPS, correct me if I'm wrong, Kirshe, is like 8.3 meters per second, 8.32 or something like that.
You'd know better than I would, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's like 8.32. And yeah, it's semantics up at that number. Obviously, it would be phenomenal for me to get her a little bit faster. But the amount of work that it would take to nudge that up just a little bit more, I would say for her is not necessarily the most important thing at the current time. And, getting her from 185 pound hang clean to a 200 pound hang clean, not the most important thing. But if I can lay some volume on her and, get her more aerobically fit and make her recover quicker, I think that's where she's going to have an edge out in the 7s pitch.
Yeah. And I just want to say, so I was training at Flight for, I think maybe 6 to 9 months before I went out to full-time training. And I was able to kind of go into full-time training without really a problem. And I think that's a testament to, what Flight did for me and how you guys prepped me for that. Most people can't go from, working a desk job and just working out, 5 days a week to then being in a full-time environment with that seamlessly. And I think I got really lucky with how you guys prepped me so that I could go right into a full-time environment and then within a month be taking my, first steps out on the series, I think that's all a testament to, you know, the preparation that you
Krish, what happened the first time that you touched the ball on the field?
First touch, first try.
I think second touch, second try too, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember watching that tournament live. I was like, this is unreal.
Yeah, it was a pretty good start. You know, I can't complain about that.
Credit to the team at Flight. Well done. So I wanted to ask, obviously we've got overall work capacity, the aerobic side of things, and then we've got our intervals, our sprints, our shorter duration efforts. How do you guys test that down in Chula, Kristi? And then how do you stack up? Is it a Bronco? Is it a yo-yo in terms of the aerobic testing? A, how do you test it? And B, how do you stack up down there?
So we do the Bronco. I've only ever done the Bronco out there. So that's usually like our test, either when we first get out there, and then, you know, we kind of check in with it every like kind of phase of training. My fastest is I'm sitting at a 5:01 right now, which is the most frustrating thing of all time.
Gotta nudge that
I wish I had
2
known
seconds.
kind of on that last 60 meter that I was that close. But no, I usually finish top 5 of the team in terms of that. So, you know, pretty proud of that. But just got to break that 5-minute mark next time.
Magic. And we'll flick into strength for sevens. And Jared, everyone wants to know, you know, what can I do with it? What sort of lift shall I do? What shall I do with the barbell? And you sort of alluded to the fact that if we've got you there, that the lifting isn't the most important thing. In fact, it's how you move. But tell us a little bit about, you know, the gym side of things, Jared, and key movements from your point of view and so on.
Yeah, I mean, so thinking to even the 15s player, I don't spend as much time nearly as I used to under the bar and with that stuff. I mean, outside of our tight 5 that are going to be needing that spinal loading for obviously scrummaging purposes and strength building there. So especially with the 7s players, where, you know, there's a lot more focus on, like I said, running, aerobic capacity. There's almost only so much of the gas tank that you can kind of dedicate towards the weight room. And so a lot of the stuff that I'll do with, especially my 7s athletes, is going to be more power driven. And I'll kind of touch on that briefly. You know, doing, whether it's, I mean, right now Kirshe doesn't have all the equipment that normally she would have the availability to. So she's really just using dumbbells, but we're doing dumbbell snatches, dumbbell cleans, some push presses, stuff like that. That's just getting, you know, full body movement through there. But we put a larger focus on unilateral work with, you know, lunging variations, split squat variations, lateral lunges. And the reason as to why, again, like I said, touching on the energy systems, we're looking more for that 30 to 40 seconds worth of work versus that, you know, 3 to 8 seconds worth of work. Obviously that varies throughout the season, off season, in season, and as we're peaking for specific things. But that's also what's going to help someone stay, you know, relatively mobile and move better. I find the more people spend time under the bar, they're going to get stiff and rigid, and they're going to kind of lose those movement capabilities, that elusiveness that our 7s players are looking for in the open field, and the ability to break tackles and squirm their way out and get their arms free for those offloads and whatnot. I've lost you guys with my headphones, so I can't quite hear you. If you could speak up just a little bit. But that's kind of my 2 cents, at least with the 7s strength training. I mean, I probably don't even, I mean, I had Kirshe going on the initial phases. We were doing 4 lifts a week. But as we kind of started to get heavier with our running volume, I dropped it down to 3 days a week to make sure that, again, like I said, that gas tank is, you know, the most of our energy is being expended on the fitness, which is what I think is going to carry her over the finish line a little bit more than the strength work. But obviously, you know, if I have a weaker athlete, I might spend a little bit more focus there on the strength training, right? Like I said, Kirshe is someone who's powerful, strong, fast already. So I'm going to lay a little bit more of my eggs in the basket of fitness and overall aerobic conditioning there. But, you know, if I have someone who's fit, maybe someone who runs triathlons and they're also training for 7s rugby, I might spend 3-4 days a week in there trying to get some more explosive power, trying to get some more strength, trying to add some size to the athlete.
And I guess, Kristi, that we talked about the super strengths the other week, and I guess the power and at the level you're competing at, the ability to go from 50 to 100 like that can be the difference to making a line break and scoring a try, or getting around just to give the offload and scoring a try or not. So I guess that would make sense from my end.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Nice, guys. So we'll flick over to some film now, and we'll sort of just narrate over and see some of these qualities from a physical point of view in action. And obviously, just got to allow audio here. Cool. And Kristi, obviously, you know all these girls very, very well. So feel free to tell us a little bit of, special insight as we watch these clips.
Oh yeah, this is just Alev making everyone else on the field look silly.
And this is versus New Zealand, Kristi.
Yeah, so this is in Biarritz. This is versus New Zealand. This is the gold medal finals. Our ends up being our first time winning a series stop.
Unreal. And the first one's pretty special. What is Alev Kelter like in the training environment?
Her, and just kind of, the love it takes to kind of, really want to just kind of put everything on the table for it. And she knows so much. And it's been really cool to learn from her. And obviously, she's one of the best players in the world. You can see it from that clip. New Zealand is, historically one of the best rugby countries in the world. And, she just kind of torched all of them. And you see her evasion, you see her breaking tackles, and it takes a special player to be able to do that.
Yeah, I was going to say a bit of everything there, a couple of steps, broke a couple of tackles, stepped out of the final tackle, and it was like an 80-meter effort. So Jared, that's probably one of the anaerobic lactic efforts you were referring to. Is that fair to say? Oh, you're just muted over there, Jared.
Sorry. Yes. No, that's exactly what I'm talking about when I'm saying lactic anaerobic work right there, because she's probably got the ball in hand for about 25 to 30 seconds there, making various moves, cuts, change direction, breaking tackles. As we know, the contact areas can be kind of one of the most fatiguing aspects of the game outside of the running. So just what that does to the body and what that does to, that gas tank that I'm referring to, it takes a lot out of it.
Nice. Yeah, so great examples and well articulated, Kristi. So we're heading into the final bit here, and we've got kind of your personalized program. You've been lucky enough kind enough to show us what it looks like. And Jared, you're the cruel mastermind behind this. So potentially you can both give us some insight as to what exactly is going on across this 4-day program. What's the objective, and kind of the difference between the days, perhaps.
Yep. So we can kind of get into this. And this is the first program I wrote Kristi when she came back. So kind of, it was, again, a little bit more of kind of reestablishing where she's at, where she's been, kind of getting some baselines that we could build off of. And as I said, we're going to spend a little bit more time with her on more of the fitness and the conditioning aspect of it, the aerobic capacity, the lactic anaerobic work, right? So if we look at day one, that's going to be more of our max speed, our acceleration day. That is going to be more of our anaerobic work. And, these are the qualities, like I said, I'm focusing on other things, but we still need to brush these qualities to make sure that we don't lose these qualities. We need to make sure that we're still tapping into the fast twitch muscle fibers, that she can still burst for 10 meters, for 20 meters. The rolling 20s are going to be more of our top end speed work. So this day, I mean, if you ask her, I'm sure she would tell you from like an overall perspective, probably not that hard. Probably one of the days that got her the most sore, though. Would you concur there, Kirst?
I do.
Probably felt some things that you really normally feel: hip flexors, adductors, glutes, that stuff.
Yeah, it always surprised me because it's one of the lower meter days, especially like when you look at something like this next day, it's 5,400 meters. This one's only 1,400. So it's a lower meterage day, but yeah, you're trying to hit top speed and you're trying to get into those good, like running shapes, and like getting into that repeated A position. Yeah, you definitely feel that on the hip flexors. So yeah, definitely one that gets me the most sore, I will say, out of all of them.
Yeah,
14.
and just because it requires probably the most CNS work, central nervous system work that we'll get through any of the stuff that we do throughout the week. You could argue that the 5-10-5 would be up there as well, but that's why I usually would run that on like a day 3, assuming that she's going to get a break between day 2 and day 3. But knowing that she's going to have a little bit of time off over the weekend to allow her to recover to go into the session, I usually like to start out the week with the more intense work and then kind of taper off. And because we can always work at higher intensities, higher volumes when we're a little bit fatigued in the central nervous system, but we're not going to be able to get the high quality sprintability, later on in the week. If we were to do this session after, doing that 5,400 meters that you see here in day 2, if you're going to do that the next day, the quality of what we're getting out of those sprints would not be what we're looking to get.
Straight off the beach into 14 10 meters, Kristi. And obviously you're looking for full recovery there, Jared, and lots of high quality repetition. It looks like at
I'm
least
sorry,
from
you cut out.
I guess it looks like you're looking for full recovery between each effort, and like you said, not huge strain, but lots of good quality, meaningful repetition.
Yeah, and I'm always looking for technical sprints here, right? So she's working more on how she's moving, not necessarily just getting to the line and running 10 meters and running 10 meters and running 10 meters. It's very important that Kristi takes the time to focus on her running mechanics. She's accelerating here, so she's focusing on harder ground contact rather than longer strides. She's thinking about short, choppy strides and kind of creating that energy into the ground versus when we get to our longer distances where we'll open up a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about the grubber to the corner, Kristi. What's going on there? Or Jared?
It's definitely a skill I'd never really worked on before, so that I think I probably look kind of silly doing that, but because it just kind of ends up being me kicking the ball and then me chasing after the ball, and I just probably look kind of really silly running around the field doing that.
It's a good thing there's not a lot of people on the field right now.
Yeah, it's just like almost just like added little fitness of just like kind of continually jogging for a few minutes after you finish all the sprinting.
No, I love that. I think unless you train it, then how do you expect it to come off in a game? And I can't wait to see it come off on the circuit, Kirsch. And then Jared, into week 2, mate, into day 2 rather. Tell us, that looks relatively hellish to me.
It is.
Yeah, this is quite brutal, and Kirsch and I and a lot of the other athletes that I'm writing conditioning programs for at the time, everybody seems to be coming back to the 200s as being this terrible distance, because really what it seems like it really is, because it's probably just outside of reach for you to be able to, at least as a rugby player, be able to go all out for 200 meters. Like I feel as though, at least with me, when I'm doing them, like 160, 170 meters, and then I'm just trying to hold on for dear life and try to not let my legs fall out from under me. And I mean, if you think about where this could happen on the sevens field, I mean, it happens all the time, right? You're on your try zone. You're on your try zone. Someone breaks the game line, gets through. You're chasing down in support. Maybe there's a tackle poach on the other side of the field, and they're flipping the field and coming right back. So, the need for that kind of capacity is always going to be there, especially on the sevens pitch. So, I think that, Kirsch, when you get back out there on the sevens field, you'll see that you'll be thanking these 200s a little bit for what you're doing there.
I mean, maybe, but yeah, I say all the time, like, with a 100, you're going to sprint the whole thing. With a 400, you're like, obviously I'm not sprinting this whole thing, I'm running it. But with the 200, it's like almost like, oh, I can almost sprint the whole way. But yeah, then like the last 30 to 50 meters, depending on how I'm feeling, like I really am just like, trying to hold on to any semblance of sprinting.
Yeah. But Tom, just to kind of go through this sequence here and kind of explain why we've gone the way we've gone. And generally speaking, you're going to go with the most intense activity, which would probably be a 100 versus the 200. So I've kind of identified that that's the time parameter, the volume that I'm looking to really train Kristi here. And then basically what I'm looking to do is peel off a little bit of meterage, but increase, our work to rest ratio as we go into the 100-meter sprints afterwards. And basically that's that repeated sprint ability, right? I've already kind of fried her out with 1,200 meters worth of 200-meter sprints. And now I'm looking to see what can I get out of her in that reserve tank. Even though they're only 100-meter sprints, I'm looking more for capacity building there than I am for, 100-meter sprint time. And then as we get into the 400, now we're talking a little bit more about that aerobic conditioning, that aerobic base that I'm looking to build. And then obviously the 1 mile right there is the icing on the top. I think you ran the first one just over 7 minutes, Kirsch, and we've been shaving off time since.
Just under.
Was it? Oh yeah, that's right. Because I was like, I think I did mine in like 7:03. You can beat it. And you're like, I don't know. And then you came back and beat me by like 5 or 6 seconds.
Yeah, well, because by the time you run the 400, you're like, damn, I just ran a whole mile. And every time I would do that 400 lap, I'd be like, I don't know how I'm going to do this 3 more times after this.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm just going into it. Like, it's almost as much of a mental battle as it is a physical battle at that point, just trying to get through that mile. Because you're like, oh, my God.
Yeah, and I've always said that about runners and distance runners and whatnot. You have to have some sort of screw loose up top to be able to just settle in and run for miles and miles and miles at a time. Not something I would ever be able to do. But yeah, moving on to day 3, Tom, with change of direction. So this is more just, the stressors of the game, right? So obviously rugby, we're going to be jamming the brakes, accelerating, change of direction here and there. So I really make sure that I count the change of direction, so you can see that tab right there where it says total change of direction. And we're always looking to get kind of like a minimum of 150 on like a low volume week, and as high as 300, 400, depending on the athlete and where we are in season. Because that's the stuff that's actually going to break the tissue down a decent amount. And that's where you'll get those musculoskeletal injuries, the hip flexor injuries, the ankle rolls, calf pops, all those things that comes from at least my experience, is lack of preparation in this area. Deceleration is going to be the most stress on the tissue from an eccentric perspective. We're decelerating all of that force, all of that body weight from a top end sprint and jamming on the brakes and now changing direction and going back. So I'm always making sure that my athletes are prepared for what the sport is going to ask of them. And, again, coming under severe, central nervous system fatigue in a game, if we haven't been there 1,000 times and changed direction and really jammed our feet into the ground and planted and accelerated out of it, bad things are probably going to happen to these athletes. So this day is, you can kind of see that I loop in a couple different things here. 5-10-5 is going to be a little bit more of a explosive and anaerobic thing in terms of exercise selection there. So it's obviously starting in the middle. If you're an American football player, they all do this really well. Starting in the middle, we'll shuttle 5 meters to the right or left, shuttle 10 meters back, and then you'll shuttle back 5 meters to where you started. But I did kind of put a bit more of a alactic, anaerobic, emphasis on this by only giving her about 30 seconds. So it takes about 5 to 6 seconds on a good rep. So she's getting, like a 1-to-4, 1-to-5 work rest ratio. And you put that in 2 sets of 10. And I'm sure you can say, Kristi, you're pretty gassed after this. I'm sure your heart rate was probably up in the 170s or so.
I mean, you do the first few and you're like, oh, this isn't that bad. Then you get to, number 5 of the first set.
Yeah, number 5,
like, wow,
number 6.
I have to do a whole nother set of 10 of these after this. Yeah, you start to feel it for sure.
Yeah. And then the eagle run's just going to add a couple different components of rugby to this. So getting up and off the ground. So this is starting on your belly on the try line, shuttling out 5 meters and back, and then out 22 meters and back. So we're getting change of direction. We're getting up off the ground. And then similarly, a rep of this is probably going to take you anywhere between 20 to 25 seconds. So now we're looking more at that 1 to 2 work rest ratio. But still our emphasis on this day is the actual shuttle running, changing of direction, and under that, fatigue state. And then everybody's favorite broken Broncos at the end. So a broken Bronco difference there. And I'll manipulate this between sets and reps and time really. But it's just the individual reps of the Bronco. So a Bronco's five reps of 20 meters back, 40 meters back, 60 meters back. So, I'll vary this depending on what I'm looking for from the stimulus from the athlete. If I'm maybe looking to build a little bit more speed in that, I might give them 1 rep and give them a little bit longer of a time to recover. So we're kind of pushing that 45 to 50 second 1 rep out there. And then I can kind of build that up throughout the weeks. And that's generally what I like to do with breaking up broken Broncos.
This is actually my favorite day of the week.
Is it? Why is that?
Well, I dislike the track day because I just think that this, as you said, it kind of feels the most game relevant,
like
with change of direction and getting off the ground. It kind of, at least mentally, I'm a little bit like, oh, I can see like how this applies to like playing, and I think that helps me kind of get through it a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Although the other stuff is, yeah, I could see that as well, Kristi. And Jared, just quickly, obviously you got the 4 days here. Jared and Kristi, how does the lifting play into this? Would it be like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 3 lifts a week? Would it be like what would that look like?
We varied it a little bit as we've gone through. We tended to do a bit of front loading. Kristi, we did Monday, Wednesday, Friday in the beginning, right? And now I think we're on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday.
Lifting Monday, Thursday, Friday.
Monday, Thursday, Friday, yeah. Because of
running Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Saturday, exactly, yeah. So we're doubling down on, like I said, the acceleration day, not high in a volume perspective. So I'm always going to double down on that first day of the week, knowing that they're going to be a bit more fresh, and then looking for a bit more recovery kind of in the middle of the week to kind of give her a bit more of a fresh start to the second half of the week, Tom.
Yeah.
Nice. And then the final day, we've got the aerobic conditioning, it looks like.
Yep. And I mean, this, you can ask Kirsch, this has evolved to another 200 repeat track day. But this again is just kind of more of that overall arching aerobic capacity. So this early on has a bit more change of direction with 20-meter out back. So that's just a shuttle 20 meters and back. Then we have 80-meter mass runs. So this has less change of direction. It's just running 80 meters. And then you can kind of have a slow stop, turn around, walk back to the mark. And then as the time's requiring her to go, she'll turn around and run back. So it's not a shuttle, but it's an 80-meter run. And obviously we have the 60 meters as we go into that as well. But so this was just, the point of this one was just to get more volume of running in throughout the week and kind of finish off the week the way we wanted to. But I kind of look at this as the session where we're going to probably have the lowest amount of intensity, but we're probably getting, whatever we need to make up for that week. So if you look at a marathon runner, they're going to do some sort of hill sprint day, some tempo running, stuff like that. And then usually in the weekend, they'll go out and do their long run is what they call it. And that's where they're just getting the mileage in. They're not necessarily working on splits. They're not working on, intensity as much. They're really just trying to get the overall volume in to build that stress adaptation for the body. And that's kind of what I look at that day for, as especially knowing what we've done throughout the whole week and how important those other days are. And I'll always tell my athletes, if there's a day that you can't do, we'll look at day 4 to be that day.
That looks like you could call that heart health day, Jared. Just for the walls of the heart, if you will.
Exactly. Exactly, Tom. So like I said, going into the aerobic conditioning stuff in the beginning, it's more for, building stroke volume, building hypertrophy of the heart muscles, and, probably just a bit of active recovery. I don't want to call it recovery because it's not a recovery day, but, just flushing the system, getting some circulation through there, getting all that lactic acid that's maybe had accumulated throughout the week.
Kristi's looking at you like you're severely unwell.
Kicked your butt, though.
Yeah, no, it's not to be taken lightly.
No, like the first time I went into it, I was like, it doesn't seem that bad, but it absolutely, like, still killer. It might be like the making up the extra meters day, but still certainly feel it. And then it's nice because it's Saturday and you get Sunday off, but it's still one to get through.
Yeah, it's no easy one.
No, that's fantastic, Jared. It's very comprehensive. I love it. I think it's fantastic. And Kristi, thanks so much for kind of sharing your experiences on that as well. I guess the final question would be, if you're to say you've got a tournament on the weekend, what might that week up to the tournament look like with, training and stuff like that? Jared, from an S&C perspective, what would you sort of advise, teams and players to look at?
Well, I would definitely front load it. Obviously, their workouts wouldn't look like this because in an ideal world, as Kristi's prepping for a tournament, she'd be getting a lot of this running volume in at training and through drills and through actually playing sevens rugby. But like I said, I'm just trying to recreate what the sport is going to ask of her and probably what those numbers look like in her training sessions through these sessions here. But there's many different approaches to it, and we've gone through different ones with the free jacks, and I'm sure USA kind of messes around with it, Kristi, and kind of changes things from here and there. But definitely going to be a bit more front-loaded heavy She'll probably get her higher running volumes in earlier on in the week, and then as she gets closer to travel and tournament time, it's going to be a bit lower in the volume, a bit lower in the intensity, and probably just sharpening up skills and making sure everyone's up to date on plays and make sure everything is kind of firing on all cylinders, right, Kristi?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think normally like we'll have like a kind of bigger week before we travel, but then once we travel, usually it's like we have like the first day we get there, we kind of like flush our bodies, like we'll have a practice and we'll have a lift or like whatever, and then when we get the days before tournament, that's just like run throughs almost, like they're pretty light sessions, just kind of keeping the body moving, making sure everything's feeling good and like we're like physically prepped at least for the weekend, but we're not putting down high speeds or high meters or anything in those few days right before we play.
Yeah, you're pretty much just playing that active recovery button to get you into the weekend and not overstress anything.
Cool. No, that was awesome, guys. Thank you so much for the time taken to come on and do this. And Jared, I think you guys do remote programming, don't you? As well as obviously Flight is about to get back up and running, but if you wanted to do a little plug, now's the time.
Yeah. Actually, Kristi just sent someone over, Amanda, the other day, so I sent her out another program. But yeah, no, we've been doing remote programming throughout this whole thing, and obviously with rugby players all over the country, if you just reach out to us, I'm happy to help out in any way, shape, or form. The remote programming is definitely something that we've started to push in the last year or two. And, like I said with Kristi, it's tailored to the individual, to your specific position or towards what you're looking to get out of the sport. So definitely something you can reach out to us with, flightperformanceandfitness.com, or you can reach out to my personal email, jared.collinson@thefreejacks.com. I'd be happy to respond and at least kind of push you in the right direction.
Cool. Awesome, team. Thank you so much for jumping on. And we've got our final week next week, Kristi, a big week of strategy. So buckle up for that, and that should be good fun as well. So Jared and Kristi, as always, thank you so much.
Yeah. Good seeing you guys.
Go on.
All right, stop recording.